The lights were already on. Windows glowed with warmth. Music drifted softly through neighborhoods where families were gathering, wrapping gifts, setting tables, marking time the way they always did on Christmas Eve. Outside, the cold pressed down quietly, settling over streets and fields, sealing the night in stillness. That was when Victor Mendoza disappeared. Pause. Let the silence breathe. Someone was missing. Someone was expected home. And someone would not be found until the season itself had passed. For a long time, Victor's name existed only in the space between celebration and dread. While the world leaned into joy, his absence grew heavier by the hour. Christmas Eve is supposed to pull people closer together. Instead, it marked the moment everything came apart. Before we go any deeper, if stories like this move you, if you believe every missing person deserves to be remembered, then you already belong here. This is Adventure for Truth. Subscribe to the channel and stay with us as we uncover the stories the world almost forgot. It was an ordinary night for Victor Mendoza. Not ordinary in the sense of meaningless, but ordinary in the way holidays often are: predictable, familiar, safe. He wasn't heading into danger. He wasn't leaving his life behind. He was moving through it, expecting to return the same way he always did. Victor was someone people counted on, a man with routines shaped by responsibility, by family, by expectation. He had plans that night. People were waiting for him. That mattered. Because when someone like Victor doesn't come home, the absence doesn't feel optional. It feels wrong. At first, concern waited politely. Christmas Eve is full of delays. Traffic slows, phones die, plans shift. Everyone assumes the night will sort itself out. But as hours passed, reassurance gave way to unease. Calls went unanswered. Messages stayed unread. The cold deepened, and the world outside grew quieter. Somewhere not far away, a pond sat frozen and undisturbed. Its surface was solid, pale, unremarkable. It looked harmless, permanent, empty. No one stood there imagining it held anything at all. And that was the most dangerous part. Because while homes stayed warm and families stayed awake waiting, the truth about Victor Mendoza was already locked beneath ice, hidden by a surface that convinced everyone it had nothing to give back. The last confirmed details of Victor Mendoza's movements felt almost insultingly normal. He had been seen earlier that evening doing what countless people do on Christmas Eve, moving through familiar streets, following a route he knew by heart, expecting the night to end the same way it always had. There was no urgency in his actions, no indication that he sensed danger, nothing to suggest this would be the final set of decisions attached to his name. He didn't make a call asking for help. He didn't send a message hinting at trouble. Communication didn't fade gradually. It stopped, cleanly, as if the night itself had closed around him without warning. At first, that silence didn't alarm anyone. Holidays disrupt routines. Phones die. People get distracted. Christmas Eve encourages patience. But patience has a limit. As the night wore on, concern sharpened. Victor's absence stopped feeling temporary. He had places to be, people waiting. The hours passed the point where delay made sense, and still, no one could place him anywhere beyond a certain moment. No witnesses came forward. No one remembered seeing his vehicle stopped along the road. There were no reports of an accident, no sounds in the night that suggested impact or chaos. The road Victor traveled was familiar, but winter changes familiar things. Darkness falls earlier. Ice creeps across pavement unnoticed. Depth becomes impossible to judge when water freezes and blends into the landscape. What once looked like a boundary becomes an extension of the road itself. The pond near his route sat frozen, its surface smooth and unbroken. No cracks, no disturbed snow, nothing that suggested weight had passed over it or through it. From a distance, it looked solid, safe. The kind of place your eyes slide past without registering. At the time, no one understood how easily ice can lie. The final trace of Victor Mendoza wasn't a dramatic event or a visible mistake. It was the quiet end of movement, a moment where the night absorbed him without leaving behind evidence strong enough to demand immediate answers. And because the cold preserves silence so well, that moment went unnoticed, even as Christmas morning arrived without him. The search for Victor Mendoza began under conditions that worked against urgency and clarity. Christmas morning arrived with quiet streets and closed offices, a world temporarily slowed by tradition. While families gathered, investigators pieced together what little they had: a last known route, a narrow window of time, and a disappearance that offered no obvious starting point. The cold complicated everything. Snow softened edges. Ice sealed surfaces. Darkness lingered longer than usual. Roads were checked for signs of a vehicle leaving the pavement, but winter is good at erasing mistakes. Tire marks vanish. Broken ground hardens. Anything subtle disappears before it can be read. Search teams expanded outward, guided by logic rather than evidence. Nearby roads were driven repeatedly. Ditches were examined. Open areas were scanned for abandoned vehicles. The assumption was simple. If Victor had encountered trouble, something would have surfaced by now. But nothing did. The frozen pond remained part of the landscape, not the investigation. Its surface was intact, dusted lightly with snow, offering no cracks or breaks to suggest interference. Ice has a way of projecting certainty. It convinces you it is solid, final, incapable of concealing anything beneath it. That illusion held. As days passed, the urgency softened into waiting. Not resignation, waiting. Victor's name stayed present in conversations and reports, but without new information, momentum slowed. The holidays ended. Normal life resumed. And with it came the uncomfortable reality that the answers might not arrive quickly. For Victor's family, time became distorted. Each passing day carried the weight of what should have been celebration, now replaced by absence. Christmas had marked a boundary, before and after, and every year beyond it would carry the same question forward. The frozen pond remained unchanged through it all. It thawed slowly, then refroze. Seasons passed. The surface never betrayed what lay beneath. And because it looked exactly the way frozen water is expected to look, no one challenged it. The case did not linger because the truth was hidden far away. It lingered because the truth was locked beneath ice, patient, silent, and waiting for the cold to finally let go. The answer did not come with the cold. It came when the cold began to loosen its grip. As winter faded and the ice finally thinned, the landscape changed in subtle ways most people never notice. Snow melted unevenly. Water levels shifted. Surfaces that once looked solid returned to reflection. It was during this quiet transition, not during an active search, not during urgency, that the pond finally gave something back. At first, it didn't look like a discovery, just an irregular shape beneath the surface, a shadow where there shouldn't have been one. The water was clearer now, no longer sealed by ice, and light reached deeper than it had in months. What had been invisible all winter began to take form. Authorities were called. The area was secured. As equipment moved into position, the outline became unmistakable. A vehicle rested beneath the water, positioned in a way that explained everything that had gone unanswered. It wasn't near the shore. It wasn't visible from the road. It sat where ice and darkness had worked together to conceal it completely. Recovery was slow and careful. There was no rush, no spectacle. When the vehicle was brought closer to the surface, the weight of the moment settled heavily over everyone present. This was not a new accident. This was a return, months late, but undeniable. Records confirmed what the scene already suggested. The vehicle belonged to Victor Mendoza. The frozen pond had done exactly what it had promised all along. It had looked solid when it wasn't. It had appeared empty while holding everything. The ice hadn't just hidden the truth. It had convinced the world there was nothing to find. And with that realization, the long silence surrounding Victor's disappearance finally began to make sense. The discovery of Victor Mendoza did not bring relief. It brought finality. The frozen pond had not taken him violently or suddenly. It had taken him quietly, without witnesses, without sound, without disruption strong enough to carry beyond the night. What had seemed like certainty, solid ice, passable ground, a familiar route, had been an illusion shaped by winter and darkness. The truth explained everything the search could not. Why there were no skid marks. Why no one heard an impact. Why the road looked untouched the next morning. Ice does not crack loudly every time it fails. Sometimes it gives way without warning, swallowing weight and sealing itself again before anyone notices. For Victor's family, the answers arrived with a weight that could not be softened by time. Knowing where he had been all those months did not undo the loss, but it ended the cycle of wondering. The questions stopped multiplying. Grief, finally, had certainty to stand beside it. Christmas would never feel the same again. The night meant for closeness and warmth became a marker. The moment everything changed. Each year after would carry memory instead of expectation, absence instead of waiting. Victor Mendoza vanished on Christmas Eve, but he was never forgotten. His story is a reminder that winter can hide more than cold, and that stillness does not mean safety. Sometimes, the most dangerous places are the ones that look finished, complete, and certain. The pond eventually thawed. The ice disappeared. Life moved forward. But the truth remained. Victor Mendoza was missing, and now he has been found.